ESPN dropped a new 3-round mock draft, so we're going to dive into that in today's video. Field Yates and Mel Kiper Jr., they collaborated on this mock draft, and we're going to go through all 4 selections that they made for the New Orleans Saints. Welcome to Saints Now by Chat Sports. My name is Trizzy Trey Stroud. I hope you guys are excited to get my reaction, get my thoughts, and see what Mel Kiper and Field Yates had the Saints picking. Let's get you caught up on how this thing worked out. We're also going to go through every pick of this mock draft, so that way, Saints fans, you guys can be more informed, you guys can be more aware, and hey, that way you don't have to pay for that ESPN Plus account, am I right? That's a reason to subscribe for what it's worth. But you see the top 4, now let's move to the top 8. You have Mason Graham, Jeanty, Armand Membou, and Jalen Walker round that out. And then instead of showing you the next 4 picks, I want to reveal to you the next singular pick. In round 1, number 9 overall, the New Orleans Saints had selected Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback out of Colorado. That is coming from Field Yates. And I got to say this, I mean, it's a very popular pick for mock drafts. I wouldn't be very surprised considering this new information around the Derek Carr injury, which we have some new context that we're going to dive into in a video later this evening. So cannot emphasize enough how important it is to turn on your notifications. I think this is an interesting pick, but I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Saints drafting Shedeur Sanders? Do you like the selection? We're going to see what Field Yates had to say in just a second, but I want to hear what, like, if the Saints pick Shedeur, are you going to be happy about it? Are you going to be pissed? Or do you wish it was somebody else? Like, feel free to share your thoughts. Feel free to sound off. You know how the top 8 went. I want to hear from you. Now, here's what Field Yates had to say on Shedeur Sanders. There's uncertainty around Derek Carr and his 2025 season amid his shoulder injury. So the Saints must at least consider taking a quarterback at number 9. Sanders displays really good accuracy, poise, and toughness. Traits that should appeal to new coach Kellen Moore as New Orleans aims to stay competitive in the NFC South. Now, I'll say this about Shedeur Sanders. I would be okay with Shedeur Sanders. Like, genuinely, I am just wanting to see Kellen Moore get his guy. I don't care if it's Shedeur. I don't care if it's Tyler Shuck. I don't care if it's Jaxson Dart. I don't care if it's Rattler or somebody in a future draft. I genuinely couldn't care less. Shedeur Sanders is a player that is an interesting option. I do like the accuracy in his game. I like the swagger. I like the mindset. I do think that he's a tough football player, and I think that he would be a good selection overall. He's got the superstar potential, and it would be nice to see the Saints draft a quarterback in the first one since 1971, is that correct? Since the 70s when Archie Manning was selected by the Saints. And, you know, I'll say this, again, I'd be happy with Shedeur Sanders. I would love Shedeur Sanders, and the content on the channel would be absolutely electric. But is that who Kellen Moore wants? I personally believe Kellen Moore would rather have Jaxson Dart. That's just my opinion. The Vegas odds, they suggest that the Saints will draft Shedeur Sanders. But Kellen Moore was physically present at Jaxson Dart's pro day, and I don't think that means nothing. So we'll have to see what happens. I would be happy with Shedeur, but, well, again, the question is, who does Kellen Moore want? Not who do we want? Let's keep this thing rolling with the mock draft. Will Johnson, a really good football player, at 13 to the Dolphins. Mike Green, he's going to cause some problems in the NFC South in this mock draft. And then you keep this thing moving. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers select a really strong safety, Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina. Walter Nolan, Omarion Hampton. Sean Payton gets his running back right there. I think that's a really sneaky good pick. I like Derek Harmon. I am not a fan of Shamar Stewart, so as long as the Saints avoid him, that's pretty much the only player I don't want to see selected. That's just my personal opinion. Tet McMillan falls all the way to 25 overall, which is absolutely shocking to me. I would personally be okay with going and trading back into the first round to get Tet McMillan, or even if it's taking him at 9, I don't really care. I'm in love with that player, and so to see him at 25 is very shocking. CJ Stroud gets another target, and Jaxson Dart goes to the Cleveland Browns at 29 overall. Back-to-back Ole Miss Rebels, Trey Amos in the first round, Josh Connerly Jr. to the Chiefs, and Jihad Campbell somehow falls to the Eagles. It's just absolutely the most Howie Roseman thing ever. And then you keep this thing moving. Shocking selection. Tyler Shuck at 34. Jaden Higgins at 35. Luther Burden at 36. And then you get to where the New Orleans Saints select at 40. Travion Henderson almost fell, and I would have actually been all in on that pick. However, the Saints go with Azareye'h Thomas, the cornerback out of Florida State. This is a pick that Mel Kiper selected in his most recent mock draft when it was just a 2-rounder, but here's what he had to say in his most recent one. Thomas's speed and length could be exactly what the Saints need on the outside after trading Marshawn Lattimore last fall. The takeaways haven't come quite yet for Thomas, but he did have 19 pass breakups over 3 years. Now, at 6'1", 197 pounds, he has a really nice frame, and he is a lanky player, and he has the ability to create problems as a cornerback and as a defensive back for opposing wide receivers, and I think that it would be a really good compliment across from Kool-Aid McKinstry. And also, not to mention, he won't be 21 until after the draft, so he's a young player that you can really dive into and you can really pour into and develop over the course of his NFL career. Some cons with him: he does have very limited ball production, only 1 interception, 4 pass breakups, and he does have a tendency to miss tackles. In the top end speed, there are question marks around that, but he is a physical football player. He's a guy that in coverage, 17 of 33 pass attempts versus completions allowed, 141 yards, 0 touchdowns allowed, and then a 50.2 quarterback rating. So, I'll say this: the Saints do have a need at cornerback, and I think that this is a good selection. I also believe that they have a need at edge rusher, and, that's a position that the Saints definitely need to consider. And I would have loved to see the Saints address edge rusher in round 2 here, but I do think that this is a good pick, considering how the cornerbacks have fallen. Again, I think you could have gotten a higher level edge rusher than cornerback, but I can also understand why the Saints went corner here. Now, really quickly, I want to encourage you, before we keep this thing rocking and rolling, to subscribe to Saints Now by Chat Sports for draft coverage every single day. And plus, we're going to be live all 3 days of the NFL draft, and then afterwards, we're going to be giving you coverage on the undrafted free agents, a full video and a full breakdown of the UDFAs. This is going to be your one-stop shop for all draft coverage for the New Orleans Saints. So subscribe today, lock us in, turn on your notifications, and if you do, I promise this, Nick Lopez will be very, very happy. Now, we also got to say thank you so much to today's presenting sponsor, that is Game Time. We got a lot more picks that happened in the first 3 rounds of this mock draft, and we're going to dive into it. 2 more picks for the New Orleans Saints. But really quick, this show would not be made possible if it weren't for Game Time. And watching sports with your friends is always fun, but nothing matches the hype of actually being in attendance. So don't miss out on any big moments across sports with the Game Time app. And Game Time also doesn't just stop at sports. It's the best ticketing app for concerts, comedy shows, theater, and other live events too. Game Time has last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy shows, theaters, and any live events in your area. And you also got to check out the Super Deals feature. These are the tickets that are the best value for events. And if you want to go see LSU baseball, well, my Arkansas Razorbacks, they are coming to Baton Rouge, and they're coming to go and bring a sweep. I'm telling you, this year is going to be a good year for the Hogs. Hopefully, didn't just jinx it, knock on wood. But if you want to go to Jazz Fest, Game Time's got tickets to Jazz Fest. Go see some local artists. Go see your favorite bands play at Jazz Fest. And then you can also get tickets to the Falcons versus Saints games or any of the Saints home games. We don't have those scheduled yet. We don't even know what days they're playing. But you can get tickets, and you can also take advantage of the super deals. Game Time also has all-in pricing, seat views, and the lowest price guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but once again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off when you download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest priced, guaranteed. Alrighty, so this thing is really, really interesting. That I kind of teased it. I would have loved to go edge rusher here. James Pierce Jr. He is a player I would have rather taken over Azareye'h Thomas. However, I can understand it. Savon Revel also got taken at 44. I would have also probably lean more towards that selection. But again, I'm not totally disappointed in it. Benjamin Morrison, he's headed to the Atlanta Falcons. So a new cornerback in the NFC South to deal with, and then Xavier Watts to the Cincinnati Bengals. You see Mason Taylor, the LSU product, team up in Sean Payton's offense to the Denver Broncos at 51. Jack Besh, a big-bodied wide receiver that I'm a big fan of from TCU. He's from the state of Louisiana. I would love the Saints to see him go to or make him a selection, but unfortunately in this mock draft, he heads to Seattle. Now, Jalen Knoll, I'm a big fan of his game as well. Quinshaw Judkins, don't sleep there. Savion Williams is a sneaky good wide receiver as well. So there's a couple targets that the Saints, or that at least I've talked about for the Saints that are off the board here. But then you also see Anthony Belton, JT Tuimalu, Marcus Mbao, and then keep this thing moving. Jacob Parrish. I'm a big fan of Jacob Parrish's game, by the way. Landon Jackson, Woo Pig, for what it's worth. I like him as an edge rusher. He could be a solid option. Tate Ratledge goes to the New York Football Giants. I'm a big fan of him as a guard. I'd love to see the Saints make him a selection to be the perennial next left guard for the Saints. Harold Fannin, big fan of his game. I really like him. He goes to the Chiefs, gives Patrick Mahomes another weapon. Jalen Milroe, Caleb Johnson. This stretch of 4 picks right here is actually really good. And then you go to Kyle Williams, Andrew Makuba, Jordan Birch, and then Ariante Ursery to round out the next picks. And then the New Orleans Saints, they end up selecting Jordan Birch. So here's what Field Yates had to say about the Oregon edge rusher. Birch put together an excellent final season at Oregon with 8.5 sacks. He has length, fluidity, power, and the Saints could use youth on the edge with Cameron Jordan turning 36. And I'll say this, I totally agree with that sentiment from Field Yates. The Saints definitely need more juice at the edge rusher position. I'm really excited to see Bo Davis and Brandon Staley get to work with this defensive line, especially with a player of Chase Young's caliber. But let's talk about Jordan Birch because he is a player that has a lot of juice and can provide a lot of juice to the Saints defense. He's extremely flexible and has really nice bend, especially considering his size at 6'4", 280 pounds. The athleticism is also very special, and he rarely misses tackles. And, you know, there is a hope and there is the potential for more untapped potential and more things to grow and develop and turn him into an even finer player. However, with pros, there's cons, and he did have limited production in 5 seasons. He was at South Carolina for 3 years before he transferred to Oregon. And he had a decent season in 2023, but in 2024 is really when he came on to the scene. 4.5 sacks at South Carolina in 3 years. It's really not that great. And he also does struggle a little bit against the run, but you know, for a team that was really bad in sack production, I think that this is a fine selection. Again, I go back to it. I would have rather gone James Pierce Jr., considering the Saints struggled getting sack production. They had 39 last year and was tied for 18th, bottom half of the league. Not ideal. So, you know, I don't hate this pick. I like the player. I like the filling the need. But I also think that there is more things that the Saints got to add, and one of those being a wide receiver. So let's see where Mel Kiper and Field Yates go next. Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State, goes to the Carolina Panthers. I also really like Princely Unamalian. Million. I can never get his name correct. I'm so sorry about that. I actually probably would have preferred that pick. Dylan Sampson, a very sneaky running back. I also am a big fan of his game. Wyatt Milam is a versatile offensive lineman. I've mocked him to the Saints before. Emory Jones Jr., the LSU offensive lineman, is headed up to the Indianapolis Colts. Jack Sawyer to the Cincinnati Bengals. Shamar Turner to the Raiders. Nick Martin to the from Oklahoma State to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a pretty high selection for Martin. He's a good football player, but I feel like 84 could be a little bit early. That's just my opinion. You know, maybe I'm a little bit of a hater. I also like this selection of Riley Mills here for the Chargers. I think he's going to be good on Harbaugh's team. TJ Sanders, that's a name that has definitely been linked to the New Orleans Saints. He's a big-bodied defensive tackle that I really, really like out of South Carolina. Will Howard goes to the Los Angeles Rams to back up Matthew Stafford. You see Demetrius Knight, the linebacker. He's another player that's been mentioned to the Saints, out of South Carolina. He goes to Baltimore, and then we get to the 93rd overall pick. Trey Harris, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. And before I even get to what Field Yates had to say, I love this pick. Now let's dive into what Field Yates broke down about Harris. Remember that we matched Shedeur Sanders with the Saints in round 1. Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave are both coming off injuries, so New Orleans would be smart to get reinforcements for their rookie passer. Trey Harris runs great routes with an average 17.2 yards per catch last season for the Ole Miss Rebels. And there's no mystery that he was a really, really big reason why Jaxson Dart was able to find the success that he had. It would also be pretty cool to bring a Louisiana guy back home. That's been a big theme this year, it feels like, so it would be cool to continue that trend going on. I mean, this is exactly what you're missing in the Saints offense. You need a big-bodied possession wide receiver that can, operate over the middle. But, one of the things I also love about Trey Harris's game is that he can win downfield too. He's a big play machine just waiting to burst onto the scene at any moment in time. Any pass he could take to the crib. He went 8 for 13 in contested catches in 2024. That's a 61.5 percentage, which is really impressive. 5.12 yards per route run, 7.7 yards after catch. He forced 11 missed tackles, and he has a background in basketball. And I think that those are all recipes for an electric, incredible, great wide receiver in Kellen Moore's offense that could be a perfect complement to Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed that won't take away from them, but it can complement them. I love this pick. He did have 5 drops last year. The short area quickness is a little bit in question. He might be a guy who's just better with long strides, and he does have a slightly limited route tree, but I just really, really like this fit. I think this would be an awesome pick. The guy's a gamer, the guy's a baller, and I would be thrilled if the Saints drafted Trey Harris. To just round this out, we want to get you informed real quick. Here's how things finished off. Billy Bowman, he's a really, really impressive player out of Oklahoma. I actually am a big fan of him. I would love to see the Saints end up with him on day 3. That would be awesome in my personal opinion. But, maybe he doesn't make it there. And then you get to the last few picks. Kyle Kennard, Barrett Carter to round things out, and there you have it. That's going to be all of the mock draft, and then, we highlighted the Saints pick. So in case you guys didn't, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. I mean, we gave you ESPN Plus content for 100% free, but while you're subscribing, I want you to grade the picks. We had Shedeur Sanders, Azareye'h Thomas, Jordan Burch, and Trey Harris. I mean, these are all needs on the Saints roster. What do you think? Grade it for me. A, B, C, D, or F. And Saints fans, we have a really awesome video around Diana Rossini providing some new context around this Derek Carr situation. We're going to put that out later on this evening. So I encourage you to subscribe, turn on your notifications. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you here in a few hours.